Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Reading in the Dark. My name is Byron and I read sometimes. I'm enjoying a nice piping hot cup of cinnamon dolce coffee and some crumble cookies here because it is the Burr months as of today. It is September 1st as I'm filming this, and that means that it is fall and it is time to do fall reads, and spooky things are on their way, and as you know, it's my favorite time of year, so I'm super excited. It is time for a September TBR. So in the month of September, in the month of August actually, let's just go back. This is not a wrap up, but I just want to quickly make a point here for myself. In August, I counted and I read 1,694 pages. So that's a lot. That's like 1,700 pages, and I actually reread a good portion of The Shining because I had not read it for a week and couldn't remember what was going on. So it was more than 1,700 pages. So with that in mind, that is how I have come up with the literary torture that I have designed for myself in the month of September. These are some good books. Now, the first book I was supposed to be reading was The Shining. I mentioned this on the channel a long time ago. I wanted to read The Shining for Halloween. And then a couple of years ago, my partner and I, David and I, read Carrie together, and then I realized it was his first ever novel. So I thought, oh, that's neat. Not that it was my plan to go in order, but I was like, well, we kind of have already started that journey, so why not? So we read Salem's Lot, I think that was in August. So I wanted to save The Shining until September, but we have a couple of friends who are doing like a series of spooky movie nights, and the very first one was The Shining, and that was on like the 29th or something. So I decided to push myself to read The Shining sooner and to get through it really quickly. I made it into a readathon for myself and read The Shining in 2 days. David was out of town. I was off work at home on my days off, and I thought I'm gonna just make it happen. It was a wild time, you guys, and I vlogged the whole thing, so look forward for that. So The Shining was supposed to be the first thing on this list, but actually I read it. It was really, really good, by the way, 5 stars. Oh, and then I didn't even get to go to the party and watch the movie because I was sick. So the first book officially on my September, I'm gonna put my coffee down and maybe have a piece of cookie. Look at how delicious. Yeah, so we had these delivered the other night. David did, because he was having a craving and we've been talking about crumble, and I thought, we don't need those. And then someone brought them to the door. When we first received the box of cookies, I will let you know that the entire box and all of the cookies within smelled like a certain herbal indulgence. And that was not very appetizing. It has kind of wafted away by now, but yeah, I don't smell it anymore. But for the first day, I was like, I don't want to eat that. Okay, so now the first official book on my September TBR is a book that is out of print and is not being reprinted because the author doesn't want it to be, and that is Rage by Stephen King. Okay, it's actually Rage by Richard Bachman. This was his 4th novel, and it deals with essentially a school shooting, and it's told from the perspective of the shooter. So for very, I think, admirable reasons, he didn't want this book out there anymore because he didn't want it to be an accelerant for people who were already tending in that direction of wanting to do violence onto other people. He wanted it to fall out of print. I might not finish it. I might decide that it's a little too much for me, but I wanted to at least give it a shot. I did find a copy of the Bachman books online for a little bit too much money from, I think, the UK, so it's getting here at some point. And it was published originally on September 6th, 1977. The blurb is rather short and says, a disturbed high school student with authority problems kills one of his teachers and takes the rest of his class hostage. Over the course of one long, tense, and unbearable hot afternoon, Charlie Decker explains what led him to this drastic sequence of events, while at the same time deconstructing the personalities of his classmates, forcing each one to justify his or her own existence. Yeah, so it's gonna be dark, and it's gonna be disturbing, and it might be upsetting, and I may or may not get through it. It could be my first ever DNF. Have any of you read Rage by Richard Bachman / Stephen King? Has anybody here read that? Did you have thoughts about that? What was that experience like for you? Am I signing myself up for something awful? I'm just a completionist, unfortunately, and so I'm like trying to read it. We'll see. And assuming that does not get here in time, because as of right now on September 1st, it's not here yet, I'm going to read Murder, She Wrote, number 20, Destination Murder. Now, just before you click away, this is the only Murder, She Wrote book on my TBR. They're cozy, they're fun, and they are very quick to read. This book is 272 pages long. Destination Murder. Mystery writer Jessica Fletcher takes a 3-night train trip with her friend and his railroad association through scenic British Columbia. But when a member of the entourage takes a sip of a Bloody Mary and dies, shocking, police begin investigating. The suspects gather in the Starlight Express dinner car, and it's up to Jessica to do some unplanned sleuthing before everyone's plans are derailed by death. Okay, so these books are just charming and lovely and cozy because of things like that sentence, before their plans are derailed by death. And also things like the skulls, the like scary dead face skull and crossbone skull art that is hidden onto the cover of like most of, but not all of these books. It's just a rollicking good time, and it's like a balm for the soul. I find Jessica Fletcher to be such a charming character. The next book on my TBR is a long one. She's a chunk. It is a 597-page horror novel called The Good House by Tananarive. Angela hoped her grandmother's famous healing magic could save her failed marriage while she and her family lived in the old house the summer of 2001. Instead, an unexpected tragedy ripped Angela's family apart. 2 years later, she's moving past her grief and is finally ready to revisit the rural house she loved so much as a child, but she discovers she was not the only one there to suffer a shocking loss. Could the events be linked to a terrifying entity her grandmother battled in 1929? So I think it's a haunted house story returning to a family home. She must summon her own hidden gifts to face the timeless adversary stalking her in her grandmother's house and in the Washington woods. This book has very high ratings from some people that I follow that I like a lot, and I've been wanting to read Tananarive for a long time, so I'm gonna tackle this 600-page chunker on my Kindle, and it's something that I'm very much looking forward to because it has such good reviews and it sounds so great. It sounds like a wonderful gothic mystery situation / horror, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a spooky good time. The next book on my list is another book that I've been looking forward to for a long time, which is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Abby and Gretchen have been best friends since the 5th grade when they bonded over a shared love of E.T., roller skating parties, and scratch and sniff stickers. But when they arrive at high school, things change. Gretchen begins to act different. And as the strange coincidences and bizarre behavior start to pile up, Abby realizes that there's only one possible explanation. Gretchen, her favorite person in the world, has a demon living inside her. You know what? I don't need to read any more than that. This has the greatest cover of all time. It looks like VHS tape that's been rented one too many times. And I'm very into it. It is, yes, 337 pages. I think it's gonna be a blast, and I feel like it's set in the 80s. It gives those vibes, certainly. An icon of 80s pop culture references from Peter Reed's books. That's exciting. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the 80s-ness of this and the exorcism-ness of this as well. This is gonna be awesome, and I'm gonna get all of my vibes in all of my life, and it's gonna be fantastic. And it'll mean that I finally read Grady Hendrix. The next book that I'm going to read with my eyes in September is an anthology of short stories by Shirley Jackson called Dark Tales. I don't think it was published while she was alive. I think it was collected after. Shirley Jackson, of course, I have only ever read one thing she wrote, and that was The Haunting of Hill House, which is so good, and I need to reread it. And I haven't yet. This includes a foreword by Ottessa Moshfegh. That's exciting. After the publication of her short story, The Lottery, in The New Yorker in 1948 received an unprecedented amount of attention, Shirley Jackson was quickly established as a master horror storyteller. I'm a huge Shirley Jackson fan, I think, but I've only ever read that one novel, so I'm super looking forward to this. I am reading another one of her novels in October. So then that's it for the books that I'm gonna read with my eyes. Oh, I'm also currently listening to And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. It used to be published under the title 10 Little Indians. It is read by Hugh Fraser, who in the past I have loved. However, I will tell you, I am not getting on with And Then There Were None very well. I've liked a lot of Agatha Christie books, and I have not been that interested in this book. So this is a closed circle thing. It's all of these strangers are invited to an island. They all have something that they're ashamed of in their past that is a secret. Their host knows about it and is, I guess, going to kill them off one by one, teasing them and threatening them with this nursery rhyme about 10 people who die. The so-called nursery rhyme is It's a little racist, you guys. Okay, it says 10 little boys in this little blurb. 10 little boys went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were 9. 9 little boys sat up very late. One overslept himself, and then there were 8. So it goes on and on until they all die, and then there were none. Here's the deal. It was actually originally called 10 Little, and then the N-word. That was the original version of this poem. And that was the original title of this book, believe it or not. In the US, that was immediately not considered acceptable, and it was never published under that title in the US. And then they changed it to 10 Little Indians, quote, Indians, Native Americans, and they called them Indians in the book, and it's Indian Island. And now, then they've changed it now in the more current version, they say soldiers. Soldier Island, 10 Little Soldiers. So maybe that's just rattling around in the back of my brain and it's bugging me. Maybe because they keep saying soldiers and I keep being triggered and remembering that they changed it in the whole history and it's pulling me out of the book. I don't know. Or maybe it's just that this has become a trope, which is not Agatha Christie's fault. But for whatever reason, I am not super getting on with this book. I'm 29% of the way through, so that's farther than I thought. So I'm gonna finish that as soon as I can. But one of the other books that I really wanted to read, but I decided to not put it on the list because it was 1,000 pages, was Nosferatu by Joe Hill. And I have heard this is fantastic. So then, because I was like, well, I need some audiobooks because I always listen to audiobooks on my way to and from work. I was like, what are some of the best horror audiobooks? And the one that came up first was Nosferatu by Joe Hill, narrated by Kate Mulgrew, otherwise known as Captain Catherine Janeway of the Federation Starship Voyager, otherwise known as Red from Orange is the New Black. Kate Mulgrew, she's the best. Her voice is inimitable. She is a great actress. I love her. I met her once, actually, so pretty much we're friends. And I was like, well, okay, decision made. That's the one. It's a 19-hour, 40-minute audiobook, and I am not a person who can listen to audiobooks on fast forward, so it's going to take me 19 hours and 40 minutes. Actually, it's going to take me longer than that because driving is actually not a mindless activity, and I often realize that I'm like, oh, wait, what? And have to rewind. So that's going to take up most of this month of my audiobook time, but I'm really looking forward to it. I've listened to the first couple of minutes, and God, I love Kate Mulgrew's voice. And people who don't even really know who she is or love her, like, all they can say is just how great she is. Pretty sure she was nominated for an Audie for this audiobook, so it's like, it's gonna be such a wonderful experience. Nosferatu. What the hell is that book about? Let's find out together, shall we? Nosferatu is a spine-tingling blah blah blah. Victoria McQueen has a secret gift for finding things, a misplaced bracelet, a missing photograph, answers to unanswerable questions. On her Raleigh Taff burner bike, okay, I'm not a biker, so I don't get that, she makes her way to a rickety covered bridge that within moments takes her wherever she needs to go. Whether it's across Massachusetts or across the country, Charles Talent Manx has a way with children. He likes to take them for rides in his 1938 Rolls-Royce Wraith with the Nosferatu vanity plate. With his old car, he can slip right out of the everyday world and onto the hidden roads that transport them to an astonishing and terrifying playground of amusement he calls, quote, Christmas Land. Then one day Vic goes looking for trouble and finds Manx. That was a lifetime ago. Now Vic, the only kid to ever escape Manx's unmitigated evil, is all grown up and desperate to forget, but Charlie Manx never stopped thinking about Victoria McQueen. He's on the road again and he's picked up a new passenger, Vic's own son. What? Scandalous. The audiobook is 19 hours and 40 minutes. So those are the audiobooks that I'm going to read in September. And that's going to be enough reading for me. I'm incredibly excited about this TBR. I'm incredibly excited to maybe read that book by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. I'm very excited to dive back into a fun, cozy little mystery with the Murder, She Wrote book. I'm excited to read my first Tananarive Do. I'm excited to read my first Grady Hendrix. I'm excited to read my second Anything by Shirley Jackson, who I know her writing is just so beautiful. So that lovely conglomeration of horror-related things, those are my reads for September. Hopefully I get to all of them. I'm thinking that I can. I have taken the number of pages and divided it by the number of days, and I know how many pages I have to read every day, and we'll see if I succeed. But I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited to be heading into fall, heading into the spooky Burr months. If you guys have any thoughts about these books, and I'm sure you do, please leave them in the comment box below. The comment box, in fact, is your friend. Please remember, if you are not already, to subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot, as does hitting the like button. I know you guys hear this so much every single day, but it's true. Algorithms run the world, and it would be awesome if you did those things if you have not already. And until next time, I will be here in the dark reading.